I see that the latest advice to graduate students is to stop looking for jobs. Get out there and make your own. In other words, get off your backsides, create your own jobs. It's a variation on blaming the victims for a system. And it's a variation on a very old theme that was made notorious back in 1981 by a former employment minister in the British government, Norman Tebbit, who was famous for "get on your bike," he was known as. It wasn't strange that he should say this. He mentioned about his father, saying he never rioted. He merely got on his bike and rode until he found himself a job. Now, that coming from an Mbongi, a praise singer of Thatcherism, what we today call the neoliberal economy, is not surprising. But he was referring to the 1930s, where things were slightly different. Today, there are similar causes for the problem, overproduction, overcapacity, etc. But manual labor is not needed in anywhere near the same numbers as in the 1930s. Now, I've said this before in my Inside Labour column, that technical progress is making many, many more millions of people redundant. But neither the government leaders, business leaders, nor their great praise singers, the mainstream economists, seem to have considered the causes or even the consequences. The trade unions often get it right about the causes, the overproduction, etc., but they also seem to have no grasp of what the consequences of new technology really mean. And the same seems to apply now to the South African Communist Party, which COSATU, the largest federation still in the country, calls the Workers' Party. Now, I say this because the person who brought out the mantra about get off your backside and make your own jobs was none other than Buti Manamela, who happens to be the deputy minister in the presidency, who also happens to be a very senior member of the South African Communist Party, serving on its Central Committee and its Politburo. He did, however, mention that there are new jobs and students should gear their studies toward these. Of course there are, but they're few and they're getting fewer with the march of technology. And I don't know if you've seen in recent weeks, there have been a number of newspaper reports about driverless cars being introduced in the United States, and the fact that this will probably put 1 million employed drivers out of work. Well, what does this mean in human terms? What will the drivers do? We've seen it all before. I mean, with magazine and newspaper production, with motor vehicle manufacturing. Gradually, jobs have become less and less. And a few skilled people have been retrained, but the majority have ended up on the metaphoric scrap heap. New opportunities do sometimes open, say for example for computer programmers. But then universities and colleges produce a surplus to requirements, and you end up with unemployed computer programmers. It reminds me of what Norbert Wiener, a great mathematician and the father of cybernetics, said back in 1949. That these machines, these computers, this technological progress could create a good life for all of us, or it could usher in what he called an industrial revolution of unmitigated cruelty. That's where we are now. That's the question we have to deal with, and that is going to be the focus of my Inside Labour column, which you can access on this platform, Fin24, tomorrow, and a version of which will appear in the City Press business section on Sunday. Plenty to get your teeth into, plenty to comment about. Do so, please, at editor@fin24.com. That's editor@fin24.com. And for this week, that's all from me. Cheers.